Hello, welcome to Wildwood Farm. I am going to start a new series now on different aspects of homestead livestock. If you want to follow along, please hit the like and subscribe button so you'll get, and the notification, turn on the notification bell, don't forget that, so that you will get notified when I get new videos up and running. This week's discussion is going to be on comparing or what would be the best animal to start your homestead. You want to get started raising animals for you to eat? What would be the best animal? Most people are going to say chickens would be the best thing to do. And that's normally the gateway drug animal of choice, chickens. But in my opinion, rabbits are a better choice. Why would you want to pick a rabbit over chickens? Well, rabbits don't need as much space as chickens do. You can keep a rabbit in a cage in your garage, even if you're in town, or you can keep a rabbit or three in a cage in your house if you have room, if you're living in town and you don't want anybody to know about it. Rabbits don't make any noise. All chickens make some noise. And if you want to hatch baby chicks, you're going to have a rooster, and they make a lot of noise all the time. They don't crow just at dawn. They crow all the time. So, chickens and roosters might be frowned upon in a town setting, whereas rabbits won't. They also eat less food per pound of body weight gained than chickens do. Rabbits breed faster than chickens do. Rabbits are easier to feed than chickens. You can feed them vegetables from your garden, or you can buy a pelleted feed from the store, and they need a lot less feed than chickens do to gain that pound of body weight. Processing rabbits are easier too, and you also get the added bonus of the feet. You can make keychains out of, lots of people do, Lucky Rabbit's feet keychains. And you get a pelt, so you can learn how to tan pelts and use that pelt for other things too. Whereas in chickens, most people don't save the feathers. The feathers have very little use, and I've yet to see a lucky chicken foot keychain. I think chicken feet are nasty anyways. But you get more products from the bunny rabbit than you do from a chicken, and they're a lot cleaner to process. Rabbits are more hardy than chickens are. You're not going to have as many bunnies, once you're established and proficient at it, die at a young age as you will chickens. And you don't need a supplemental heat source for baby rabbits like you do for chickens. So that's why I personally believe rabbits make better gateway animals for your livestock starting. Now, the basics of raising rabbits. First of all, you got to decide what kind of rabbit you want to raise. In this purpose, we're only going to discuss rabbits that are going to be raised for meat purposes. A big enough bunny. There are quite a few. I think there's about 45 breeds now recognized in American Rabbit Breeders Association. They come from little bitty bunnies that get to be about 3 pounds. Full size. Yes, they're absolutely adorable. I used to raise them. They're called Netherland dwarfs. They're absolutely adorable. They make fantastic pets. And yes, you could eat them if you're in the mood for like a Cornish game chicken bunny rabbit kind of thing going on. You could make a meal out of one and have to butcher multiple rabbits for one meal. It's possible. But in all actuality, it'd be a waste of time and space to get that size of rabbit big enough to make a meat rabbit out of it. And then they also have rabbits that go all the way up to the 25-pound range, where you could literally walk that bad boy on a leash. They have breeds called Flemish Giant and the Continental Giant. They are huge. Yes, they do make good meat rabbits, but they require a lot more space than the normal meat rabbits do. The best meat rabbits that are around are several breeds. There's a breed called a New Zealand. It gets to be about 10 to 12 pounds when it's full grown. It is an albino rabbit. It is all white with pink eyes. A lot of people that I've run in all the years that I've been doing bunnies do not like that white rabbit with pink eyes. They think they're the devil. That's what they said. Or they just don't like the look of them. They also have a breed called the Californian. It is about the same size as a New Zealand, about 10 to 12 pounds. But this rabbit's body is all white, but its ears, nose, tail, and feet are dark, like, say, a Siamese cat. They're really pretty bunnies. They make good mamas, just like the New Zealand's, and they're great commercial rabbits. If you don't want a white rabbit, they have two other breeds. One that we raise called the American Chinchilla. They get their name from the color. They have the same color as the chinchilla animal. It's a salt and pepper color. It's really pretty. Makes fabulous pelts. We raised a lot of those. They're beautiful rabbits. They're a beautiful salt and pepper gray and blue and white color. They're really good moms, and those two are also the size about 10 to 12 pounds. There is also a new breed, using that word loosely, or type, of rabbit called the Tamuk. This one has been bred, so it's got higher heat tolerance and it stays more productive during the hotter months of summer than other breeds of rabbits. It's got a thinner coat. It comes in every color under the moon. So if you want pretty bunnies in your barn, you can have all the colors in the world for this breed. It has the same kind of body type, roughly, as a New Zealand or an American Chin. And they are great mamas, fast growing. The one thing about all these breeds is they have a low bone to meat ratio. That means you get more meat than bone on these bunnies. Unlike the large breeds of rabbits, where the meat to bone ratio is higher. They have heavier bones, thicker bones, and not as much meat per pound of bone in their body. So, out of those bunnies, those would be the best. Now, there are quite a few other breeds too. They're just harder to find. There's lots of breeds. I'll have a link down at the bottom in the description to American Rabbit Breeders Association so that you can look at all the breeds that they recognize. Now, of course, there are breeds that aren't recognized, or types, let's use that word, types that aren't recognized. American Rabbit Breeders is the bunny version of American Kennel Club for dogs. So there's some types of rabbits that aren't recognized. And then, of course, you can have what is called meat mutts, crossbred rabbits that are fantastic for the meat purpose for your area, but I have absolutely no fixed standard or type. And you just take one, you take a boy and a girl, and you make babies, and they grow up to be your meat rabbits. So, after you choose the kind of bunny you want, how many should you get? When you're first getting started and you don't have had rabbits before, and this is your first go around, your best bet is to start off with one buck, a male, and two does, females. That gives you plenty of rabbits to explore with. And if one doe has problems with her babies, you can foster her babies to the other doe if you breed them at the same time. So, those rabbits there can make plenty enough baby meat rabbits for you to butcher out through the year. One doe can potentially have 4 to 6 litters of babies a year, with roughly starting at about 6 kits or baby rabbits per litter. And when you butcher a rabbit at about 5 pounds, which is roughly 8 to 12 weeks, you're going to get quite enough meat for a family. So how do you keep your rabbits? Rabbits in all different kinds of ways. I would not suggest going to the House Rabbit Society to find out how to keep your rabbits, unless you're planning on having it to be a house pet. They are not a reputable source of information for raising commercial or meat rabbits. Don't go to the Humane Society or the ASPCA either. If you want to look up information, your best bet is to go to American Rabbit Breeders Association for general, or to search out on Facebook or wherever you like to find your information for commercial meat rabbit places or backyard meat rabbit breeders for that kind of care. But basically, I keep my rabbits in all wire cages. My cages are at a minimum 24 inches front to back, 36 inches from left to right, and about 18 inches high. That is the minimum size I would have for a big meat rabbit doe. You can go larger. Mama rabbits with a bunch of babies could probably appreciate a larger cage. A buck is perfectly content in that size cage. I wouldn't go any smaller for any length of time whatsoever. You need to give them some room to run around. An all-wire cage is good for several reasons. It's easier to keep clean because all the droppings in the urine fall through to the floor. Any waste feed that they drop also falls through to the ground. That keeps the rabbits out of their waste, keeps them healthier and cleaner. That way flies don't get on the rabbits either because the flies aren't going to be nesting in the poop in their cages. It also helps you keep track of when your rabbits are being bred because you will have to actively take the doe to the buck for the breeding, and then you observe the breeding, of which I'll explain more in a minute, and then put her back in her cage. So you know exactly when she's gotten bred, so there won't be any questions of the timeline for what you need to do for breeding purposes. Other ways people keep them, they keep them in a colony. I've done it. It was amusing and a ripping pain in the ass for me. Some people are very successful at doing that. A colony, the reason I do not personally like a colony is because the animals are on the ground. Okay, first of all, you need a larger space. Roughly, I think it's a 1 square foot per pound of body weight. Uh, I'm terrible at math, so I'm not going to break it down. But I had my guys, when I had them in a colony, in a 4 foot by 8 foot pen. In that pen, I had 1 buck and 3 does. The problem is the buck, the saying, breed like rabbits? Well, exactly. I had no idea when anybody got bred, unless I happen to be out there. And if the buck is shy, you're never going to see that buck breeding those does. He'll wait till nobody's around, and it takes less than 37 seconds for a buck to breed a doe. It's quick, fast, and furious. So you're not going to catch them. You're not going to know when the does are going to be due to have their babies. You may have babies being born without any preparation at all on your part. Also, they're on the ground. So their poop and pee has nowhere to go. So they're in contact with their feces and their urine all the time. And that will attract flies, which is not good for rabbits. They will also be running around in their waste feed, or they will be scratching their feed into the ground and wasting feed more often. Also, if you don't have the floor with some kind of wiring over the dirt, they're going to dig. And they will dig beautiful tunnels. When we had ours on the ground, they dug some hellacious tunnels. I mean, like 3, 4, 5 feet back. I could not reach to the back end of the tunnels. So they will dig tunnels into the ground. They can dig all the way and escape. Escaping was the highlight of their lives. And also, if they can dig out, things can dig in and get to your rabbits. And if a doe can dig a nest into the ground, she'll have her babies in the ground. That's the way they do it in the wild. So they will have her babies in that hole in the ground, and you won't know anything about it. You'll have no clue. And if it rains and the nest floods, well, there goes your litter. So, I mean, it can be done with a proper preparation and setup. You can do it. A lot of people do it. I also know of people who raise their weaned rabbits or their rabbits that they're raising up for meat in rabbit tractors, kind of like what they have for chicken tractors. They put the rabbits down on the ground and they move the tractors daily. But again, it leaves the rabbits exposed to predators and also to their own feces and stuff like that. And you're on the ground, so they're going to dig their way out. So, for the best and easiest way to do it and the smallest footprint, I would suggest raising your first batch of rabbits in cages so that you can monitor and learn everything from the start. To feed your bunny rabbits in a cage setup will need roughly about 8 ounces or 1 cup of feed for a 10-pound rabbit. I also give my rabbits hay, roughly a pile about the size of a bunny. I'm not saying poundage wise, but a heap about the size or a good large handful of hay per rabbit per day. Of course, they're going to need all the water they can drink, whether it be in a bowl or a bottle or an automatic watering system. You could also raise fodder for them. It more time than I need. More time. It took more time than I had to do that kind of thing. And where I'm at, it is so hot and humid that in the summer times it didn't quite work. And with as much as I have going on, I'm shooting for as easy as possible. So throwing them a scoop of feed in the morning and a handful of hay at night That works the easiest way to do it. And you can monitor their eating better. You can tell if they're not eating because the feed's still in the feeder or the hay is still sitting there. Uh, the hay that you need to feed them doesn't need to be anything super special. They do not need alfalfa or special blend. Anything that you would feed horses would be a perfectly good hay to feed your rabbits. Uh, so now, you want to make bunnies. This is how you breed a rabbit. A rabbit's gestation is 30 days from start to finish. Rabbits do not have heats or cycles like, say, a dog or a horse or a cow or a pig. They're called induced ovulators. That means they have to be bred to ovulate. Unlike us humans, we ovulate and then hopefully we don't get bred. But we ovulate first. Okay? The sex act does not cause us to ovulate. The sex act is what causes a rabbit to ovulate. A rabbit has two uteruses. It is basically shaped like that. The bottom part is here, the birth canal, and then they have a branch here, and they have a branch here. It is conceivable for the rabbit to conceive and have babies in one branch. And then if you breed her again to test breed to see if she's pregnant, she could conceivably conceive again in this litter and then in this branch of her uterus. And then either this one, the farther along one, which would probably be about 2 weeks along, the farther along one would, hormones would cause this litter to abort and not form, or they would both form, but they would have this litter first, and then 2 weeks later, you're going to go back in there and see a whole bunch of new baby bunnies and go, what the hell happened? It happens. Not often, but it does happen. That's another benefit of having them in cages. If you don't put that doe back in with the buck, there is not going to be another second litter happening like that. So, they're pregnant for 30 days. Day 1 is the day you breed them. On day 14, you palpate the doe, which means you place her on a table and you feel her stomach to feel for the fetuses in her belly. They feel like marbles. Don't squeeze super hard. There are YouTube videos, and I may make a video when I have a doe that's pregnant or when I get a doe on how to palpate a doe. It is a learned skill. You have to learn how to feel for it. So if you really want to learn how to do it, your best bet is to find somebody who has rabbits and they'll let you practice on their bunnies. Because it's hard to explain. They feel like marbles and it's right before their hips when they're on the table. But besides that, it's just something that it'll click when you figure it out. But to figure it out, it takes some practice. So on day 14, you can either palpate them or, like I said, test breed them. Most does will be grumpy and not be willing to breed if they're already pregnant. So if you put them back in with the buck and she starts growling, yes, rabbits do growl, or fighting the buck is a good sign that she's pregnant already and doesn't want to be with the buck. Okay? If now, you could have a doe that's just a hussy and will breed again. Okay? That's day 14. On day 27, that's when you need to put the nest box in with your rabbit. The nest box for a rabbit that's about 10 pounds needs to be about a foot long, about 6 inches wide, and about 8 inches high. If you want to put a roof on it to make it more sheltered, go for it. It doesn't need it. Then I would stuff that nest box with wood shavings is great. You can put hay in it, but you're going to have to keep filling it up because mama's going to eat it. You can also use straw in a limited amount. Some people use newspapers, but I find that clumps up and mats down too much if it gets damp. Especially when she's giving birth, it's going to be messy, so it'll get wet and pasty and gross. So I don't use that very often. Do not put like towels or anything like that. The babies could get messed up in it or twisted up in the blankets and not be able to find their way out to their mommy. And the mother rabbit, right before she starts to have her babies, which is called kindling, will start pulling fur from around her neck and from between her back legs and on her stomach. She does it for two reasons. One, to help line the nest and make the babies have a nice, soft, warm bed, and to make her nipples more available to the babies to get hold of. And then on day 30 or thereabouts, between day 30 and day 35, After that, the chances are she's not pregnant. I've seen does go up to day 40, but after 35, it gets slimmer and slimmer of a chance for having a baby. The kits are born in the nest that she makes. Baby rabbits are born blind, naked, and deaf. Okay, my very first litter I almost destroyed because I thought they were rats, except they didn't have tails. Did not know what baby rabbits look like. So if you see a bunch of little naked pink squirmy things in your box, congratulations, you've just become a rabbit grandmother. Mama rabbits do not stay with their babies like dogs and cats do. They hide their children. They go in there at dusk and dawn and they feed for less than about 5 minutes at a time, and then they leave the babies. The babies do this cool thing. They find somehow or another these blind, deaf things that only can do is smell and eat and pee. Will find their mother when she jumps in the box. The mother will hover over the litter, and the litter will all flip upside down on their backs, and I'll find a titty and nurse. It is the cutest thing. They make the cutest little squeaky noises while they're doing it too. The mother will stay there for a few minutes and then she will get out. She does not clean her babies. She does not wipe their butts. She does not tuck them back in. All the little babies, what they'll do is they'll all kind of start digging back into the bedding. Every one of them will start peeing, and then they will fluff up the bedding and dig their way down and bury themselves back in the bedding. It is amazing to watch. Chances are you will never see your doe feed unless you either set up a camera out there and watch her, because she does not want to be around her babies while she thinks anything is there that can hurt them. If they get super stressed, a mama rabbit can and will eat her litter. Sounds disgusting, and for some twisted reason in their mind, they seem to think that they're protecting their baby from whatever they think is their dangerous thing there, and they kill them and eat them. It's weird. If babies also die in the litter box, they will probably cannibalize those babies too. There is absolutely nothing wrong from handling your litter. Lots of people always say, do not mess with the baby. It'll make the mama rabbits not take care of them. If the mother rabbit is accustomed to you handling her, then she is not going to mind your smell on her babies. It is advisable to at least check on your litter once a day to make for sure that everybody is eating, the nest box is not nasty, and there's no dead babies in the box. If there's dead babies in the box, it's going to stink, and that's going to make mama not go in the box and take care of the babies. It's also going to attract flies, and the flies are going to lay their eggs on the rabbits, live and dead, and the flies could kill your live kits as well as your dead kit. Take care of the dead kits. So it is definitely feasible to check on your litter at least once a day. And if the box gets extremely nasty, save the clean hair. You can also pluck more hair off of mom and remake the nest for her. It will not cause a problem. It is better to keep the nest box dry and clean than leaving the babies with a nasty wet box. That will kill your babies quicker than anything. Baby rabbits' eyes will open roughly at about 10 days, and they will get their fur in at 10 days. It's really cute to watch their colors come in. Some rabbits, if they're spotted or have markings on them, you can tell their pattern before they even get their hair on. You will see the markings on their skin. It's really cute to watch them develop from these little embryonic looking things at first to a bunny rabbit that weighs about 6 ounces, and they look perfect. So at 10 days, their eyes will open. They will start running around in their nest box, but they won't be hopping out yet. Day 14 or so, they're going to start hopping out of the nest box. At that time, depending on the weather, you can turn the nest box on its side so the mother can jump up on one side to get away from the babies, because baby rabbits are pushy and demanding. And the babies can still get into the bedding if they get cold and give them some protection. Or you can totally take the nest box out if it's warm enough, if it's not going to be getting cold. You can totally take the nest box out. At this point, the baby rabbits are going to start nibbling on the mother's feed and hay and sampling the water. Also, you're going to see them doing something which most people think is disgusting, but they practice a form of coprophagia, which is poop eating. Okay? They need to eat some of their mother's pellets to get the right bacteria in their stomach. Rabbits don't choose cud, but they do make a specific type of poop. Normally their pellets are dry, little round balls. They make this kind of poop called cecotropes that look like bundles of grape. like bunches of grapes, and they're softer and they're moist, and they eat those. Lots of times you won't see it because they will eat it directly from their rectum, but they will, mother rabbits will leave some in the nest box or on the cage for their babies to eat, so they can get the right bacteria in their stomach so they can start digesting solid food. So at this point, let the bunnies run with their mama. You can wean your kits at any time between 4 weeks and 8 weeks, or you can leave them in there longer if you want, if the mother rabbit is handling it. The difference in the weaning times is one, most rabbits in the wild, naturally, can get rebred the day that they have their babies. Yes. So that way you could conceivably have a litter every month off your babies, off your does. I wouldn't do it unless you're really wanting to push your litter and your rabbits, and you're taking really good care of them, feeding high protein food and maintaining their condition. Because having those nutty litters, one right after another, will wear a mother rabbit out quick. But in nature, they will have babies get bred right after they have their first batch. And the mother rabbit will go off and make another nest to raise her other babies, and she'll abandon that first batch at 4 weeks. Most rabbits don't really nurse much past 4 to 6 weeks anyways, so the baby rabbits don't need their mother for any nutrients whatsoever. Now they may want her for moral support, I guess, good word, but they really don't need their mother after 4 weeks of age, as long as you can see that they're already eating their feed, the feed that their mother's got, and their hay, and they're handling it well. You could leave the litter in with the mother up until the time that you want to butcher them if you're not breeding the mother that fast. So, and normally you butcher your rabbits between 8 and 12 weeks. At that point, your kits should be about 5 pounds, which is a good live weight for a rabbit at that size. Now, butchering will be a whole different thing, but I will do a whole video on butchering and explain the whole thing there. That'll be a whole different thing. But butchering is easy and quick. At the point of weaning them, you can either move your baby, you can either butcher them out and then start with another litter, or you can move your litters off to a separate cage. But when you wean them, you will need to check their sexes and divide them up, because rabbits can start breeding as early as 4 months of age, 12 weeks, okay? So you will definitely need to sex your rabbits and pull them off. There is no problem breeding a parent to a child, as long as you're not going to continuously do down that line. If you breed a mother to a son, or a son to a mother, that litter needs to be what's called a terminal cross. That litter needs to be butchered and not save any for replacements. Replacements need to either come from outside your barn, or a breeding that is not closely related to the male or female that you're going to be breeding them to. Genetics part will be a whole nother video when I get into the type of rabbit that I'm breeding and what I want to do. As for health considerations for rabbits, the biggest problem that you have with rabbits that are kept in cages up off the ground is what's called ear mites. Kind of like lice. Not really lice, because it doesn't live in your ears. It's little bitty, let's think bed bugs. Kind of like bed bugs that live in rabbits' ears, okay? They burrow into the layers of the skin, and they suck the blood from the rabbits. It causes the ears to itch badly. The rabbits scratch. They tear up their ears. It gets all crusty and scabby and nasty. The easiest way to treat it is with ivermectin. You can take a couple of drops of ivermectin and put it in each ear, or a couple of drops of ivermectin, mix it into a carrier oil, say like mineral oil or vegetable oil, to put in the ear. The ivermectin will kill the bugs and repel them. Plus, the oil will smother them and soothe all the scabs and make it easier to clean that out. You can either clean it out yourself, or you can allow it to soak in, and the rabbits will shake their heads and get all the crap out of their ears. It can get really, really bad. If you leave it alone and you don't do anything with it, the ear mites can get so bad that it can cause the rabbits to go deaf and their ears to really get messed up and droop and misshapen and stuff. And it's extremely painful. So it's easy to treat it. But that is the number one big thing that you're going to have to worry about. If you keep your cages clean, you don't have a whole bunch of straw and extraterraneous bedding materials in their cages, chances of you getting ear mites in your rabbit, if they don't have it already, isn't going to be it isn't going to be very common. Okay, rabbits off the ground don't often get worms. Okay, they don't get worms, so you don't really need to worry about that. Um, the other thing is just keep their cages clean, and that'll keep them from getting any kind of really other thing. The other thing that you need to watch out for, sore hocks. Rabbits' feet are all furry on the bottom. They don't have pads like a dog or a cat. They just have a whole bunch of thick hair on the bottom of their feet. If the rabbit has bad genetics, or if the floors of the cages get filthy and that hair gets super damp, they can get sores or like blisters on their feet, and it will wear away the hair on their feet, and then it'll wear away the skin on their feet. It can cripple a rabbit if it's not taken care of. Hence the reason for cleanliness in the cages. Keep the cages clean. If the rabbits seem to be walking like they're walking on eggshells, or really their feet, they'll be not walking properly, really touchy. Their feet will be tender. You can put in a resting mat, piece of tile. Um, I have seen like dish drainers, flat tray things to put in the boxes, or a piece of carpet. But all of this needs to stay clean and dry for their feet to heal. Besides that, those are the main two concerns that you have with the health of rabbits. Now, as for the breeding, you bring the doe to the buck because both rabbits are territorial. Now, of course, a male isn't going to mind a female coming to his cage because he knows what he's getting out of that. But a girl rabbit does not particularly think of it the same way as the males do, and she doesn't want the guy in her turf. Okay? So you bring the girl to the boy. Rabbits have what is called, rabbits breed from behind, like pretty much all animals do. The male gets on top, and it's really fast. And the way that you can tell that is if he's bred her correctly, he will do what's called a fall off. And it's called that because that's literally exactly what he does. That last thrust when he ejaculates is so hard that they usually knock themselves on their butt and then they fall over backwards off of the doe. Some male rabbits, this is amusing, are what's called screamers. Yes, that's exactly what they do when they ejaculate. They scream. It's funny. It cracks me up every time. The first time will catch you by surprise. No, he's not dying. He may look like he's dying, but he's not. He's just really, really happy. So, the doe rabbit may scream sometimes. They may fight the buck if they're not willing. If there's a fight going on, put them out. Just separate them and try again later. If the doe is willing, she will put her head down and pick up her butt. Okay? And the buck will understand that she's willing and do his little thing. A buck can breed a doe multiple times in one setting. I normally let them breed her at least twice and get 2 fall-offs before I split them up again. Uh, Temperature may cause a male to get sterile in the summer if it's over about 85 degrees. That's why I have chosen to raise now the Tamuk, because they're not as susceptible to heat sterilization as other breeds of rabbit. So that's why I picked that breed, so I can breed during the summertime when it's easier, where you don't have to worry about your kits freezing to death in the middle of winter. So, for all that reasons is why, and besides the fact that I really do like rabbits, almost as much as my goats, and nowhere near as much as my horse, but I really do like rabbits. They make a great meat supply. I had a brain fart. Plus, if all else fails, they don't take up a lot of space. They're easy to transport. They're very stealth because they don't make any noise most of the time. So your neighbors aren't going to know. So if you want to give it a shot and you have a garage and you live in town in an HOA, hey, don't open your garage door. And you can raise some rabbits in your garage and nobody will ever know about it. You can carry out their poop in a black bag and they don't make that much poop. Also, their poop is great for gardens. So if you have rabbits and you have a garden, you have the most fantastic fertilizer around. But all in all, that being said, rabbits make the great first animal for your homestead. I hope you enjoyed this. I will also have a link down in the description to a way to get a ebook, not an ebook, a pamphlet that I have written that pretty much says all of this in writing with a little more details about different breeds and some charts on how to feed and things like that if you're interested. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. I read them all. I appreciate it. And I will definitely get back to you and let you know or answer your questions on anything you want to know. And stay tuned. I will give you a whole nice video on my new breed, the Tamuk rabbit, and why they are so fantastic and where they came from. Thank you very much, and y'all all have a blessed day.